Good afternoon once again. Welcome to these post-gathering interviews. Today, we have the pleasure to have with us Graham Boyd from EvoluteSix, hosted the Transition Lab at the gathering. And Graham, can you say us a little bit more about EvoluteSix?
Yeah, so we created EvoluteSix to facilitate businesses that truly want to create a new economy, an economy that is fit for purpose in terms of regenerating natural capital, regenerating the biosphere, and creating a world where human life can live in harmony with nature. And we've been operating as EvoluteSix for 10 years now, and in general, been doing this work of building regenerative businesses for 15 years now.
Okay, that's a really amazing and cool concept. What do you mean, or how do you define like those kind of business and like your the work you
So,
develop with them?
yeah, so a couple of the key parameters. First of all, we need to look at multiple businesses that come together in an ecosystem. Just the same way as if you want to regenerate a forest, for example, you're not going to regenerate a forest landscape by only planting one pine tree and trying to get it to scale to be a huge pine tree the size of a forest. What you're going to do instead is you're going to plant fungi in the soil, you're going to plant ground cover, you're going to plant plants, trees that only grow up to a certain height. You're going to plant some trees that grow to be massive, and you're going to have all of the insects and everything else that makes a living ecosystem. So the first thing in terms of how EvoluteSix works is that we build businesses that can become part of an ecosystem of complementary businesses. In the language of the circular economy, we build complete circles, not a single business that can be part of a circle. We build the whole circle,
Mhm.
and we build circles of circles. That's the first thing. For that to work, one of the things that is a core of what we do is we build companies so that the company truly has agency. The company is absolutely not the property of anybody. More, the company is something like a village of people.
But you
And
mean like a coup, or is
um,
there like a
it's
legal
it
definition you can like tell us?
it's taking the cooperative legal structure all the way to the fullest extent. So it has the functionality of a cooperative, but it's including all capitals, all stakeholders, all of them share in wealth generation. It also has the functionality of a limited company. So investor shares can be bought and sold, but investor shares don't necessarily carry voting rights. It has all of the properties of a steward-owned company, but what's really critical is that it's not owned. It's structured in such a way that it's treated as a living entity with the capacity to evolve, to change over time. Um, and for us, that's really key. This shift in mentality from looking at a company as a thing that is either owned by investors or that is controlled by the members of a cooperative into seeing the company much more the way we would look at a community of people, at a commons, as something that is its own entity in its own right, and where any application of the concept of property is the equivalent of applying the concept of property to a single human being. In other words, it's the equivalent of slavery.
Okay. Yeah, it really demands a new way of looking things and feeling things because a lot of people I talk, and as an environmental educator, I try to communicate that's quite polemic here nowadays. Definitely, humankind see value in nature as a dead on the dead state. And I always give the example of the wood. People just give value to the wood. Once you cut the tree, you cut the wood, you treat the wood, and then you have the material, and then you give value. And actually, there's so much value in a tree when still alive, like just by the food it can give us if it's a fruit tree, even the shadow and that give us that it's very important as well, the soil that like a mother always take care. Okay, and trying to see ourselves more as a fungi system, that's amazing concept that I really identify myself with. So now going to the questions of the interview, more like about the gathering. I want to ask you to start, how did the gathering impact your work and organization? Meaning, did it lead to new projects and partnerships?
So there are a few aspects. So first of all, one of the things that was really helpful to me about the gathering is that a number of people walked up to me during the gathering and said, "Oh, it's great to meet you in person. I've read your books or I've watched your YouTube videos." So that was something that I really appreciated, this level of feedback that helped me realize, yeah, the 15 years of hard work, and in particular during the COVID time where I wasn't spending much time with people physically,
Mhm.
has had more impact than I'd realized. So that was very helpful. The flip side of that means that actually participating in the gathering, many of the people who participated both in our camp and the people in general were people that I already knew, were already in contact with me at some level, but I'd never met face to face before. So in that sense, I think that the biggest benefit for me was not so much meeting new people that I'd never met before, but rather meeting in person people that I'd already got to know on Zoom, through them reading my books, through them connecting with me on LinkedIn and things like that, and having an opportunity to get into a deeper relationship with them.
That's so cool. That's so beautiful. So definitely was a gathering for you and all the other peoples. And of
Yes,
course, now I'm on the list. Maybe on the
yes,
next gathering, I want to
exactly.
get to know you better, personal. Okay, so about connections, did you make some kind of, I understand already you did make like deeper connections with the ones that you were contacting with, but any stories to share?
Yes, so a couple of stories to share. So one of the connections I made was with somebody who was writing a book. Um, and that led to some of my work being included as a guest contribution in his book. Um, so that was helpful in multiple directions. Also led to him inviting me to a conference that he was organizing, where I gave a short talk about our work, how to incorporate, and in particular, what he found very valuable was there's a statistical error in investment theory and economics. And because economists are making this error in the choice of statistics that they're using, it blinds economics to the necessity for collaboration. It means that they don't see exactly what you were saying. They can't see that an oak tree has value when it's growing that is quite different to its value as wood when it's been chopped down. And that value lies in the oak tree's capacity to collaborate with other trees and other plants in the forest via the mycelium network. And so he found these insights into collaboration. Well, not so much the insights, because the insights are there with anybody that opens their eyes and looks at how nature works. What he found helpful is the fact that I can prove mathematically why collaboration outperforms pure competition, and I can prove what is wrong in investment theory and portfolio theory and in economics.
All right. So, what a story to share. Well done.
Yes.
And does he has a name? You want to tell us more about that person, just us to know who we're talking about?
So my mind has gone completely blank. Yeah, he does have a name, um, but for the life of me, um, give me just one moment. Georg Holzknecht, that was it.
Okay. Yeah, or like you can say us where you're going to be invited to speak.
Yes. So, yeah, he invited me to speak at an internal conference for the company that he works for,
Okay.
which is T Systems in Germany.
Okay. Okay. Really
Yes.
cool
So,
story. So,
yeah.
as you know, the gathering aims to build a regenerative ecosystem of collaboration that it looks really happened to you. But like in a more deeper way, do you think it's a seed? And if yes or no, what do you believe it could be improved?
Yes. So, one of the things that I've noticed repeatedly with gatherings is that when everybody is there, nobody has anything else to do. There are no, there's no competing demands on anybody's time other than to talk to people, to be with the people at the gathering. And so what I find happens, and you know, I'm as much to blame as anybody else, is the is maintaining or growing or building the momentum.
Mm,
So Georg is perhaps the one of the few people at that gathering where we actually did things afterwards, and that's because there was something immediate, concrete, short-term, tangible to do.
mhm,
Um, there's many other people that I met there. For example, I met people from Schumacher College, and we had initial conversations about how we could collaborate on something. But that hasn't gone anywhere yet, partly because Schumacher College is having challenges of its own that have got nothing to do with collaboration. But just, I think, in general, there's this when you're gathering, all you're there for is to gather. And so it's easy to talk to people and to make plans. What's really hard afterwards is doing the hard work, the time intensive work of actually crystallizing and concretizing what you're going to do together. And in particular, to identify what is it that we can do together that is not adding to the workload or the demands of time of any of us. Ideally, it's decreasing the time demand on each of us. And I think that's the real challenge we face right now, especially people in this world where we're trying to do heavy lifting, we're trying to do things that have never been done before. We don't have the financial resources we need to hire the team that we need. So we're all trying to juggle far more balls than we ought to be. And so the things that are important but not urgent, when we get back to our desks, they tend to slide. And so, I'm laying out the problem. I don't know if there is a solution. I don't know if we need a solution. But the two things that spring to mind that would be helpful, one of them is if we could find if we could find better ways of collaborating within our within the competition between our different projects. better ways of collaborating so that we can just get more money flowing, so that we can all hire the people that we need to have so that we can really spend our time doing what each of us is uniquely best suited to do. Yeah, that's the one thing. And I think that the gathering of tribes has potential to shift gear into including a mechanism for investing in multiple projects and a mechanism for funding the entire ecosystem of projects, all of these things that would just enable us to get to a point of collaborating.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I'm thinking here, for example, if anybody's worked for a large multinational, like my old company, Procter& Gamble,
Mhm.
it was relatively easy to start projects because there was enough money available. You know, so that's the one thought. The other thought that I have is um, what it's really tough, but if there is a better way, and I don't know what this way is, maybe artificial intelligence will do it. I know Victor's doing some interesting stuff at the moment in this direction. But if, for example, there was an artificial intelligence avatar of me that could engage with artificial intelligence avatars of all of the other participants, and that could take care of a lot of the initial matching and groundwork, and that it could come back and say to me, right, Graham, I've organized a meeting between you and so for 2 hours for tomorrow afternoon. And
Yeah, yeah.
this is what I believe you need to talk about. That I think
Wow,
would
that
make
would
it
be, yeah, an amazing step up, technological amazing step up. But a little going back just a little bit, you talk about this kind of competition. So I assuming as well you would like to see like competition turning in collaboration. What do you mean by competition? Meaning projects trying to do the same thing apart?
so. I used competition in two areas. Are you mean when I used it competing for my time, competing demands on my time, or competition between projects?
No, I want you to help me to define it. You
Right.
just said competition between projects. I'm trying to understand in this regenerative world, what do you mean by competition? It is by time, it is money, it is flow, and should they start to collaborate better instead of compete? This is kind of
Right.
a question as well.
Okay. No, that's a helpful question. So one of the pitfalls of mainstream economics and mainstream business is looking at competition and collaboration as two poles on a single line, and you're on some compromise point between pure collaboration and pure competition. But if you look at nature, nature sees competition and collaboration as two completely separate dimensions. A forest, a natural forest, has a high density of all kinds of species, plant, animal, fungus, and it's simultaneously highly competitive and it's highly collaborative. And that's what I'm after. We need in all of the different endeavors in the regenerative space, we need very high levels of collaboration, of high levels of competition between all of us. Competition, which idea works best in what situation? Competition for resourcing, for money, all of those things. Yes, we need that. If you only have collaboration, then you lose all of the benefits that you have from competition. And you see in nature what happens if you don't have healthy competition. Nature collapses if you don't have enough competition.
Well, I
But we
have a
need,
personal, like, I have a personal sense about nature, and um, and I try as well to kind of clear more the minds of people who think nature it's all romantic, because it's not true. There's a lot of competition uh, under and above the soil. And what I feel more and more, I go deep nature and try to kind of not so much to study it, but to feel it like a quantum field, and try just to feel and try to absorb the experience nature give me. As an example, maybe that scale, I would define it less collaboration it is, more competitive exists. And meaning, like nature, it's an amazing system putting down only competition. Like everything that collaborate, like you have the consociations, for example, in plants as well animals, and they do kind of they do are more resilient, and they kind of they drive better than a species. They just compete. Of course, they will gain a lot of it, but then they will fade away because their source just they actually they kill the source more like a virus. And so is there a relation? I feel more and more like more you collaborate, you not turn less competitive, but nature kind of have this tendency to annulate what it is only competitive. Do you feel like it?
you're absolutely right in what you're saying. And that's the whole topic of my second book, The Ergodic Investor and Entrepreneur. And this is where I dive into the mistake embedded in modern economic thinking and business thinking, where they're using the wrong statistical equations. When you use the right statistical equations for how nature works, how business works, then that shows you clearly that we need to have collaboration, that they're two independent dimensions. And in particular, you need to have things like profit pooling between
Mhm.
competing businesses. And there's a classic example of that. Apple came very close to going bankrupt at one point. Bill Gates from Microsoft invested a significant amount of money in Apple. So there was a level of collaboration between Apple and Microsoft and a level of competition because Bill Gates recognized that if I don't invest money in Apple now and they go bankrupt, then that's going to weaken the entire ecosystem. And the harm that that will cause to Microsoft is much more important right now. Therefore, I need to collaborate with Apple to keep it alive so that we can all benefit from growing the entire ecosystem. So there are lots of examples of that.
Yeah,
So, yeah,
but that's an amazing example. Actually, you went really through it, and that's a very, very good example. People should learn and make it better because the world needs so much. And about like more of your project, because we already talked about the question what could be better and how. I think it's more than answer it. What does your project need? Meaning, how can the gathering support you?
yes. So there are a couple of things that we need. One of probably the most important thing that we need and where the gathering can help is just raising awareness amongst entrepreneurs, consultants, and investors that there are fundamentally better ways of doing this, that we need to invest according to the principles of ergodicity. We need to incorporate in ways that are agency-based incorporation, not ownership-based incorporation, and that we can already do that now. We don't need to wait for something new to be invented, for something that will save us. We know how to do it, and EvoluteSix is one of the few places with 15 years practice now in doing it this way. So, you know, to help to get the awareness out there that EvoluteSix exists, that these better ways of doing things exist. That would be the most important one. And then subsidiary to that is we'd love to have more startups on our acceleration program for regenerative startups and more investors engaging in our programs supporting investors developing their capacity for regenerative, circular, and systemic investing.
Yeah, certain. That's and we're really kind of trying to do it. So now the last question, I would like to know, in your opinion, as you know, the gathering happens every 2 years here in Portugal. What could be done in between?
Yes. So one of them would be to develop this sophisticated artificial intelligence engine so that the avatars keep meeting continuously between physical gatherings. Um, I'm I'm wondering if in between, and this may be something I've not thought of this before, but maybe something where the gathering and EvoluteSix come into a deeper partnership, which is EvoluteSix is designed as a venture studio, a regenerative venture studio. And maybe that's what would be most helpful in between is that we have some kind of venture studios that so the projects that emerge from the gathering are immediately supported in an ecosystem enabling those projects to take off. That that, that is something that I'd be happy to engage in that in a supportive way.
Okay, sorry, Graham, sorry. We have to answer again because I believe your connection it's unstable. So we go
Oh,
back. We only have 7 minutes to finish, so let's try to resume and then we edit it, okay? Vasai know about it. He's gonna be edited. So again, so Graham, now I would like to know, just to finish, as you know, the gathering happens every 2 years. What do you think it could be done in between?
yes. So one of the things that I think could be done in between, and this is something that is directly centered on EvoluteSix's core offering, which is venture building services, acceleration services for regenerative startups, is for the gathering to offer some kind of venture building acceleration service so that projects that start or that grow during the gathering can immediately afterwards begin to receive support from an aligned ecosystem or acceleration service or venture studio service, something of that nature, to really provide the same ongoing support to projects that emerge from it. And really, the focus here is for those for 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 things, for projects, for endeavors that emerge from the gathering that would benefit from support, are ready for support and want support, not something that might be perceived as, well, if I signed up to attend the gathering, then I have to continue to engage in these weekly Zoom calls or whatever. No, not that, not where
Mhm.
people feel they have to show up, but where those few people, maybe 1% or 10% that form projects have the support that will enable them to take off easily
Mhm.
rather than with difficulty. And as I say, quite happy to explore that further on how EvoluteSix could support that happening.
Okay, amazing. And the challenge, it's on the table now. Let's see about it. And for sure, something will come up from this. Graham, I want to thank you like deeply for all your time, all your ideas, and your vision. It's amazing as well, your project. And for sure, maybe a future collaboration will be starting to rise and help other projects to drive because it's really what it needs. And actually, it's a common opinion of some of my interviews. They all kind of said that, especially with that detail, without being so general, because projects are projects. Many projects want to link or they need to link with some of them, not all, of
Mm.
course. And that's part of the gathering, the overwhelmed experience. And like, people don't have time to go everywhere, and that's part of the game, and I think that's part of the experience. And post that, of course, let's focus, let's work, let's build, and let's collaborate. Graham, once again,
Yes.
thank you so much for your time, your energy, and we see each other maybe in the next gathering. We make the connection.
Wonderful. I look forward to that. That would be superb. And thank you so much for your time and for this conversation. I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thanks, Guilherme.